organelles. There's several pages of these, and for most of them I will help you. I'll try to give you some ways to help you remember what each one does. Because there are a fair number of organelles. You are going to have to know what most of them do and also what some of them look like. So let's start off with the Endoplasmic Reticulum. So we often abbreviate this one ER. And the Endoplasmic Reticulum, its job is basically to transport things within the cell. It's sort of a series of tubes and membranes. And it brings various materials from one part of a cell to another. And so one way that I think it's helpful to remember this is, so the endoplasmic reticulum, the ER, if you get hurt, you have to be transported to the ER, the emergency room. You could link ER with transport. That will help you to remember what the ER does. And there's actually two different types of ER. One is called the rough endoplasmic reticulum, the other is called the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. And the difference is, so the endoplasmic reticulum is all these membranes, these tubes. The difference is that in the rough ER, see these little dots all around it? That's another organelle that's sort of stuck within the ER. The smooth ER doesn't have this. Those little dots are actually ribosomes. And ribosomes are a very small organelle. They're generally small little circles. And their job is to make proteins. And some of them are on the ER, like these, but others are just kind of floating around on their own. One way I tell people to remember this is ribosome. What are the first three letters? Rib. Diane, you like to eat ribs?
Yes.
What nutrient are they made of mostly? Protein. So if you say a ribosome, protein, because they're made of meat, that might help you to remember. Ribosomes make protein.
Ribosome.
Yes, Joe?
So I take it the rough ER is in animal cells and the smooth ER is on.
No, they're both in both plant and animals, because plants do have protein in them as well. I know we mostly think like meat protein, but plants do contain protein.
The Golgi things, the spiky things that I saw in,
No, Golgi bodies
but you said that
are used for packaging and shipping proteins outside of the cell. So things move around inside of the cell through the ER. But if something needs to be made in the cell and then sent out, that happens through the Golgi bodies. The Golgi bodies are kind of like the post office of the cell. They package up material that's going to be sent out. Patrick?
what's the ER again?
It transports things, endoplasmic reticulum. So if you think about how this stuff works, here we have a cell. So this is a cell membrane. We have the nucleus, we have some rough ER, some smooth ER, some Golgi bodies, and so on. So the rough ER are rough because what is attached to them?
The nucleus, the spiky
Ribosomes. So they have ribosomes. What do ribosomes make? Protein. So the ribosomes make proteins which can then be transported through the ER to different parts of the cell. But some of those proteins are going to be leaving the cell. They get sent up here to the Golgi bodies. The Golgi bodies will then package them up into these little bubbles and send them to the outside of the cell so they can be released. So Golgi bodies transport and package things up to leave the cell. ER transport things within the cell. Prima?
So the nucleus is always have to be in the middle?
No, it's not always in the middle. A lot of times we draw it there, but often it's not. Shay?
So this is all inside a cell?
All this is within the cell.
It's like its own little like.
Now sometimes to help recognize Golgi bodies, I describe it as a stack of pancakes with drops of syrup.
That's so cool.
That's usually what the Golgi bodies usually look like, these flattened layers, and you got these little bubbles sort of surrounding them. Here's a little animation, it just shows you these are the Golgi bodies and here's the protein being sent out. Shay? Maggie?
Oh, you called me. Okay. Why are little green hairs attached to the ruffer?
I don't know why.
You called Maggie Shag.
Bobby?
No.
So essentially these cells are really small, are these things like
Very small.
Okay.
Yeah. So a cell is very small. So each of these, Maggie,
Sorry.
each of these small parts within a cell are very small. But there, you can see them in the microscope. Later on in these notes, we're going to look at what they look like under the electron microscope. Okay, a couple more. Vacuoles. Vacuoles are small little bubbles, small little sacs used for storing things in a cell. And it could be water, it could be food, it could be waste products, but they're just little storage areas. And often what we see when we look at a plant cell, they have these large central vacuoles, these large vacuoles in the middle of the cell. In animals, though, they're usually pretty small. Now, yesterday we talked about, well, how do you recognize a plant versus animal cell? So which is the plant cell? Up here, raise your hand, please. Which is the plant cell? Austin?
plant cell is the one on the right?
Yeah, it's this one on the right. That's a plant cell. What told you that, Austin?
Well, animal cell are rounder, and
Oh.
the plant one is green.
Yeah, the animal cell's rounder. Lots of times the plant cell's sort of rectangular. Plant cell's green, the animal cell's not. Anything else? Juliana?
The plant cell has like a wall.
Yeah, it has a thicker cell wall around it. Good. One other thing is that, see this gray thing looks kind of like an ice cube?
Yeah.
In the plant cell, that's the vacuole. It's very large, usually filled with water. It's not like that in the animal cell. In animal cells, the vacuoles are just these small little things. You can't even really recognize them. But a plant cell is this big vacuole in the middle that gets filled with water. In fact, that's what helps keep plants upright. If you think about it, what happens if a plant is not getting enough water?
It dies.
But before it dies, how does it look like after just like a day?
Like
Yeah, it sort of droops over. What's happening is the cells in that plant are losing water, and so they're kind of deflating. And that stops keeping the plant upright, okay, because the water is leaving there. Maggie, you have a question?
So technically the little vacuole thing is a blister? What?
I guess it
It
stores
has
things.
water in it. Maggie TMI.
All right, if we look at this plant cell, here's just a drawing.
Oh god.
So here you have the large vacuole. And this is an actual picture. This is from an actual microscope. So you see this is one plant cell. This is the cell wall. All of this sort of grayish stuff, that's all the vacuole. So it's filled up with water, giving it a lot of structure.
It
and
looks like
strength.
one of those like things that you have in the IV, the little pushy things that here's some water.
There's all those green things floating in
All right. Now, one more organelle. This is another small one. You're not going to have to recognize it, but just know what it does. A lysosome. Lysosomes are these small little bubbles that contain enzymes for digestion.
I have a question that has kind of to do with that. Do like Venus flytraps have larvas because they eat a fly and the fly?
Yeah, well, they produce enzymes that break down the fly's body, yeah. Lysosomes, they look just like vacuoles and animal cells. They're real small. And like I said, you're not going to have to recognize these in a drawing or anything because they're just little bubbles. All right, our last two organelles, mitochondria and chloroplast. These are important ones. You definitely should know what both of these do and also what they look like. Patrick, you got a question?
Yeah, what is enzymes?
A chemical that helps break things down in this case.
Do we have?
Yeah, we have all kinds of enzymes in our body. Yeah, there's some that build things up, some break things down. There's all varieties enzymes help chemical reactions take place. All right, mitochondria, very important organelle. The mitochondria are sort of sometimes called the powerhouse of the cell. They provide cells with all of the energy that they need. So if you guys remember back to when we talked about the characteristics of living things, we talked about metabolism, which starts with ingestion of food, then digestion to break into small pieces. Does anybody remember the next step? After digestion, one word.
Respiration.
Yes, respiration. Respiration is when we talked about respiration, we said it's how cells release energy. So this happens in the mitochondria. Sometimes they're called the mighty mitochondria because that'll help you remember. They produce all the energy for the cell. Powerhouse of the cell.
Who comes up with those names?
There's things to help you remember what they do. So these mitochondria, they look like a little bean with these folds inside. That's how you usually can recognize the mitochondria.
Who comes up with names for these cells?
I don't know, whoever discovered them usually. And so in the mitochondria, oxygen enters and glucose enters and they're broken down, energy is released, and carbon dioxide is released. And so this chemical process happens there, and that provides the cell with all of its energy. Cells that need a lot of energy, like your muscle cells, they have lots of mitochondria in them. Cells that don't need as much energy don't have as many of these organelles. Joe?
So if you're like allergic to gluten or something, so you would, the mitochondria thingy, it wouldn't break down gluten.
No, because you were confusing two things, gluten and glucose.
Oh.
Gluten is a wheat protein found in wheat products and other things. Glucose is a simple sugar found in just about everything. So these mitochondria are very important because they release energy. The last one, the chloroplast. Chloroplasts are an important organ. Oh, this is the mitochondria the way it looks under a microscope. Chloroplasts are always green structures. They're what makes leaves green. Leaves are green because they have a whole bunch of chloroplasts in all of their cells.
So that's when the fall comes.
Yeah, and in the fall, don't worry about it. In the fall, those chloroplasts and those cells start sort of dying off, and they reveal beneath them the other pigments that are not green, but that are orange and yellow and red.
That's cool.
So chloroplasts are green structures. They're found only in plant cells, and they have a pigment in them called chlorophyll. That's what makes plants green, is chlorophyll. And these chloroplasts, they absorb light, and they use that to make glucose for the plant. This is why plants don't need to eat anything to get energy. All they need is sunlight and some other things, and they can make their own food. They make glucose for themselves using these chloroplasts. Rima?
How long did it take you to go to college and like memorize all this stuff?
I went to college for 6 years.
Isn't that how everybody goes? Bobby, okay.
Oh, you're undergraduate and then master's degree.
This is like for plants.
Yeah. All right. So the process that happens inside of these chloroplasts is called photosynthesis. Photo means light. Synthesis means making things. So in photosynthesis, light energy is used to make glucose. They look like these, so this is a type of plant we'll be looking at. Each of these like rectangular dark rectangles is one cell, and they're green because they have lots of these chloroplasts inside of them. And these are found
That's cool.
only in plants.
Your shoe.
That's technically not true. There's a couple other things that they're found in, but in our case, here's how you plant animal cells. Some protists have these, some bacteria. So, chloroplasts are important organelle for plant cells. They take in light, use it to make sugar, glucose.
Are we watching?
Can I see one photosynthesis later?
Please,
It's in a whole class.
please.
Well, we have, yes, you will, but not in this unit. We are going to spend a lot of time memorizing the formulas for respiration and photosynthesis.
Yeah,
Well,
the
that's-
sound needs a lot more.
That's not till later on.
It needs a couple more lyrics.
Yeah,
All right, so let's look at what these actually look like. Yeah, Jared, question? Hi guys.
So last year, we did these essays about the world, and someone in our class wrote it about chlorofluorocarbons.
Oh yeah.
So does that have like any-
No, they're not related. CFC's chlorofluorocarbons is a pollutant that destroys the ozone layer. All right, so you're going to have to recognize a bunch of these also in diagrams. And I'll tell you, well, let me go back for a second. Because there are 3 organelles that people always mix up.
What?
And I think it's because they sound somewhat similar. So here are the 3. Chloroplast, cytoplasm, and chromosome.
They don't sound anything.
They all, but they look similar and they all start with C. And so let's just review. Cytoplasm. Raise your hand and tell me, what does it do? Cytoplasm from yesterday. We talked about it. Yep, cytoplasm. Nobody remembers? Everyone's looking it up?
Hold on.
Christian?
I remember.
It's like the layer behind the cell wall.
No? Andrew, did you remember or you looked it up? Alright, go ahead then.
It fills us out.
Yeah, it's sort of the gel that fills up most of the cell. It holds all the organelles in place. That is cytoplasm. Alright, next. Chromosome.
Oh, I know this.
What is a chromosome?
Oh, I know this.
Jared?
It's like the DNA thing.
It's made of DNA. It stores the information about an organism. And then chloroplast.
Like,
Don't have to look it up. We just talked about it.
The green structures, it contains chlorophyll used to make food.
Makes food for the plant cells. Alright, so try to keep all of those separate in your brain. Alright, let's look at sort of what these organelles look like in the context of the entire cell. Jared, question?
Since we're considered like almost animals, do we have like the same cells?
We have, so these organelles we're talking about in animal cells, yes, most of our cells have all those same organelles. Now here's the thing. In this diagram, for example, this cell happens to have every single one of those organelles. But some cells don't have every organelle. So it just depends on that cell and what its job is. For example, red blood cells have no nucleus in them. Okay? They're specialized for carrying oxygen. They don't have a nucleus. So some cells have slightly different parts. Abby?
The cell looks like an ocean.
Yeah. Yeah, Maggie?
okay, so you know that plant cell right there?
Yes.
See, I can tell you our friends. The mitochondria, no, that's not it. The little green thingies that look like boats. They make it look like it's like an ice and like floating.
Yeah, so when on these diagrams we're going to look at, they're always like a cell that's cut in half. For example, this cell isn't really the shape. It would have been like a little sphere, but in this diagram it's like they cut it in half, open it up to show you about what's inside.
Can you really do that with this one?
Not quite like, not
Can
like
we,
this.
like,
So let's look at these
get
parts.
one of these, like, actual-
So nucleus. It's first off, it's not always in the middle of a cell. Well, people sometimes think it has to be. The outer layer of the nucleus is the nuclear membrane. Inside of the nucleus are chromosomes, which aren't shown here. and the nucleolus, the little nucleus that makes ribosome.
Oh, the baby ones.
So that whole thing though is the nucleus. Usually right near the nucleus, attached on those are the ER. Here you see these tubes, that's the ER. Now these with the little dots on them, those little yellow dots, are the rough ER. Out here, okay, are the smooth ER without those dots. The dots themselves are what? What are the dots?
Oh, it's something to be protein.
They make protein ribosomes, good. Also out here. So then out here, the stack of pancakes and syrup are
Oh, the glycogen.
Golgi bodies.
bodies.
You could see they're here packaging up these things to be sent out of the cell.
I know they start with a G. I just don't know.
The outer layer of the animal cell is the cell membrane. The oval with the folds is the mitochondria.
It sounds like snake.
The lysosome and vacuoles are just little bubbles. If we look at the plant cell, the organelles are basically the same. We have the nucleus with all the parts. We have the large vacuole in the middle of the plant cell.
It looks like a
We
snake.
have the cell wall on the outside. We have the cell membrane, which is just inside of that. We have the ERs still, Golgi bodies. We have the mitochondria. But here's the other new one.
The boats.
If they're green with these little discs inside,
Those
those are the chloroplasts.
Oh.
Chloroplasts. There's one over here.
Mr. DeRoss, are we gonna look at these things?
Yeah.
There's one on the top.
All right, another diagram. This just shows like a half,
Ew.
a quarter view. Same thing. Nucleus,
That's gross.
nuclear membrane, nucleolus,
Ugh.
rough ER,
Like cutting
smooth ER, cytoplasm. This is the cell membrane on the outside, Golgi bodies, all the parts we just talked about.
Well, why does it say
It looks like a
Golgi?
messed up
That sometimes they are called Golgi apparatus, Golgi bodies. They mean the same
Okay,
thing.
okay.
For the animal, plant cell, again, same idea, although now large central vacuole,
Vacuole.
cell wall, chloroplast, here and here, and all the other parts are pretty much the same. All right, now it's time for us to label.
So pretty.
Pull that.
So raise your hand if you can help me to label this. We're gonna start up here. So raise your hand if you can tell me what organelle is that arrow. Don't try not to look back. Try to think back
No,
without looking back. Joseph, what is that?
Golgi bodies.
No, they look very similar. Let me tell you, these dots on it will tell you it's not the Golgi. Andrew, those are the rough endoplasmic
Yeah, but I
reticulum.
thought those were the bubbles.
No, those weren't.
Aw.
I understand why you said that though. So yeah, those are the rough ER. They got the dots on them. Next,
Oh, I know it.
this is what all this sort of yellow coloring is.
Never mind.
You know what it is, Maggie?
First of all, can I tell you what the little dots are called?
Not yet. What is this yellow? Patrick? Cytoplasm, good.
I
Cytoplasm.
know the next one.
Yeah, that's one of those commonly confused ones. Joseph, what are these?
I wonder.
Golgi.
What do you got?
Oh, I wasn't gonna say that.
Joseph, go ahead.
Golgi bodies.
Golgi bodies.
I was
You got these flattened membranes.
I know.
All right, next up. Oval with folds inside, Karima. Mitochondria, yes.
Sounds like snake name.
What?
Sounds like you're
Snake
the
out.
one
Let's
that
go.
doesn't sound anything like yours.
Now the next two, you won't have to identify the difference because they basically look the same. We have vacuoles and lysosomes.
They did look the same.
So we don't have to.
Now don't worry about, you won't have to worry about knowing which is which in a diagram.
Don't say that.
All right, this next one is the small little blue dot here. Maddie, what is it?
It's like the ribosome.
Yes, that's the ribosome. Remember, some ribosomes are just kind of scattered in the cytoplasm. Lots of them, though, are on the rough ER. How about, now this next one is pointing to the outer layer here.
Oh, I don't know.
Jared?
The nuclear membrane.
That's the nuclear membrane. Outer layer of the nucleus is the nuclear membrane. And this next arrow is just referring to the whole thing. That whole thing is what, Abby?
The nucleus.
The nucleus. Now, I don't really love where this is pointing.
Where is it?
I wish it were pointing down here.
It's pointing to a bubble.
So what would that be? If it is pointing to this area here,
Oh, I know.
Did we actually label that?
Brandon?
Smoothie.
Yeah, that's a smoothie arm. Here it just says the arrow.
What?
If I'm referring to this, that's a smoothie arm.
So we write smoothie R?
Write smoothie arm and make the arrow point down there.
But what about endoplasmic? Do we write that too?
No, just write smooth. If you know smooth and rough, you know the regular. They're just two special types. Just write smooth here. You don't need the regular. How about the last one? Bobby? Not in the animal cell.
Oh, like the black.
And what do you call what membrane?
The wall, like the black.
No,
Abby?
that's
Cell membrane.
Oh.
That is the cell membrane.
Oh, Bobby.
not right.
Alright, so those are the parts of the animal cell that you should know.
That's it.
Let's look next at the plant cell.
What's that?
Alright, let's see.
Hold it.
So first, I'm looking for some people that have not yet participated. How about up here? We're going to start up here. This outer layer. Body. What, yeah?
Oh, the cell.
Yeah, the cell wall. The outer layer in the plant cell is the cell wall.
Oh, okay, I got it.
Hold on. This next one, this space in here, Sarah.
Does it sound like a V, like V-A? I don't know how to
Yes.
pronounce it. I don't
Yeah, who wants to help her, Joe?
Central vacuole.
Yeah, that's the vacuole. Good. That's the vacuole. Now this next one, it's kind of hard to see. Austin, you know what this is pointing to?
This cell membrane.
Yeah, that's this little thin blue layer around it. It's just inside of the cell wall. That is the cell membrane.
I wonder what it
How about this small little dot over here?
is. Oh, wait, no.
Hold on. Austin? Ribosome. Ribosome.
Really
Makes
wanted
protein.
to say that one. That's the only one I know.
Alright, what's filling up most of the cell? The gray that's filling up
Oh, I know this.
most of the cell. Rena, yeah, cytoplasm. Okay. That's the cytoplasm. Alright, this green organelle around the outside with the ovals inside. What is that? Shay? No, it looks similar. The key that'll tell you it's not the mitochondria is that it's green. Yeah, it does in this case. Brandon? Chloroplast.
You just said the.
Alright,
I said the only.
how about this one?
I'm looking up.
It's the outer layer here. The outer layer of this purple thing.
I know this
Hold on,
one.
I don't make it.
I think negative.
What would that one be? Jackson? Well, let's give it a try anyway. Outer layer of that.
Of the purple thing?
Yep.
The nucleus membrane.
Yeah, the nuclear membrane. We haven't done this one today though. This dark area within the nucleus. We learned this yesterday. It means little nucleus. Christian? No. Andrew? What? No. Mila?
The nucleus thingy?
Nucleolus.
Oh, there you go.
That's actually where the ribosomes are made, in that nucleolus. Now, I wish this arrow were pointing to these things, but it's not quite. You know what those X's would be? Jared?
She said it.
Brett? Those would be chromosomes, but this one's actually pointing just to the nucleus. Yeah, but the X's in there would be chromosomes. So.
Oh, I thought they were pointing.
It says nucleus.
How about this one?
That says nucleus.
I know. Shay? What is this one? Oval with folds inside of it.
Oh, the gold something.
No.
The glit. No.
I know. Wait, hold on. Mr. D-Ross.
Hold on.
The snake thing. The med something.
Mitochondria.
Snap.
Mitochondria.
But the other one was yellow.
The color is not for promote. The only ones really where the color is important is the chloroplast. All the others can be random colors, really. How about this one?
Oh wait, hold on. You can't really tell.
Yeah, this one's hard to tell. Let's not be specific. Let's just say, Brett? Yeah, ER.
Wait, that is?
Hold on.
No, I'm getting.
All right, last one.
Please, you didn't call him. Call him Jerry.
Call on all of you. Patrick. Golgi bodies. The pancakes with syrup.
That doesn't look like a pancake.
It doesn't even look like a
All right, so any questions about any of these organelles?
Think about the Bible. Think about the
Next week we'll be working on some drawings, reviewing what these organelles do. All right, so close your notes. Let's just look at this quickly. No homework.
His eyes are uneven.
All right, you guys help. I want you to raise your hand. This is his thyroid gland. If we zoom in, we can see individual cells. All right, now first of all, raise your hand. Is this a plant or animal cell?
Animal.
Raise your hand. What organelle is in yellow, Karina?
Oh wait.
What was in yellow?
Oh
Cell membrane. What is this? It was just in yellow? Cytoplasm. All right, let's hold on. Coming up next. Shay. Yes, mitochondria. Jared. Golgi body. How about this, Andrew? Rough ER. All right, hold on. So, yes, the whole thing is the nucleus. Hold on. What was that? Nucleolus. How about, now, inside of here would be the chromosomes. The outside is the nuclear membrane. Have a good weekend.